US Marshals, good sentiments. CIA, bad sentiments. Just what got us going about an accurate Hollywood stereotype.
Okay, so it's not anywhere near the same premise, but what about the twists and turns in this show gave me Paradise vibes?
The manhunt begins. Red and Red Real Reviews is getting deputized across the Alaskan wilderness in Apple TV's The Last Frontier.
I knew within the first 5 minutes I was gonna hate it, but then it was so bad. Ugh.
Nobody wants this. Like you
Literally
hear,
nobody
hold on,
wants this.
internet's gonna get mad at me for this one. There's no fat elf, you know.
Duty, which I can't say without laughing. Duty, like I'm English.
John B and Sarah are, I mean, I don't want to sound like a loser for saying this, but they're adorable. I'll admit it. Welcome in episode 5, Cinco de Red and Red. Cinco de Red and Red Trace.
Five's my favorite number, so cool.
Woo! So hopefully maybe this will be your favorite show of the new season. You never know.
Maybe this one has a lot of promise, so I'm looking forward to talking about this today.
I am too, and it is The Last Frontier on Apple TV or Apple TV Plus, whatever the official jargon is here. Before we get into this and tell you what it's about, what are we watching, let us know what you think of our show and what any kind of shows we should have on the radar. Email us redandredrealreviews@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram. Get in our DMs at Red and Red Real Reviews. That is the letter N and real spelled with two E's. So this show, The Last Frontier, uh, it, we kind of went into this thinking, okay, U.S. Marshals, okay, Alaskan wilderness, and I feel like this did not set up. After watching 2 episodes, did not necessarily set up what we were about to experience here. It starts out very hard and fast. A plane full of hardened criminals crashes in the middle of the snowy frontier of Alaska.
Mm.
And to me, this one took a, a different turn at almost every point over the first 2 episodes. You've got some CIA entities, and there may be some questionable behaviors there. Shocker, CIA.
Big
And,
surprise.
yeah, and then the U.S. Marshals aspect of it is kind of feels more like a local law enforcement presence than necessarily a federal presence in the show. So how maybe the question is not what did you kind of expect going into it, but how did the show as it starts unfold and maintain or change your opinion of how you thought it was going to go?
Um, I mean, yeah, I kind of thought it was going to be a little bit more about the inmates initially. And then, so it did take me by surprise that way because with the first 2 episodes, you're kind of thrown right into it. So you meet the main character right away. He's Frank Remnick, he's the US Marshal. He's played by Jason Clarke, who you would recognize him, if you saw him, even if you don't recognize his name. He's from Zero Dark 30, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So you're seeing who this Frank Remnick is as a U.S. Marshal, and yeah, it does kind of have local vibes of like local police force. So you're kind of seeing everything through his eyes and finding out things as he finds out things. So like
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of seeing the show through the eyes of the main character. So it kind of gives like a little introduction into him. Like he's a family guy, he's living in Alaska. He's the type of guy that goes out for a run in the morning. He's got a teenage son who's in high school. He's got a loving wife, who some people will recognize as Lottie from Yellow Jackets. The actress's name is Simone Kessel. And so they have this dream as a couple to own this cabin, and it's going to kind of be a financial burden, but it's like what they've always envisioned for their life. So yeah, just you're kind of just dropped right in the middle of this guy Frank's life, and then he gets the call that he's got to deal with this situation.
Yeah, there's the story of them as a couple and their aspirations. also kind of has a theme of this is a new turning a new leaf for us because there seems to be this air between them that there was a lot of stress and tension put on their marriage from his career as a marshal.
Mm,
So it's kind of all it's set up very early on where he wants to be done with that and focus on her dreams now and do that together, and then kind of a tried and true Hollywood story arc to like throw that character back into a very tumultuous arc of their former past.
yeah, it's almost like, everything is sunny and wonderful. Literally, when he's on his jog, he sees this moose and they just like stare at each other because, he's in, I think it's like Fairbanks, Alaska. Is that the town that it's in? So, so yeah, he just has this perfect moment with nature. And then like he talks to his wife and he's just like, oh, this is going to be our dream coming true of this life that we can have, like a new start and everything. And then it's like, hi, there's been a plane crash of inmates.
Yeah, with a couple hundred like really dangerous people dropped in the middle of nowhere, and now they're scattered about and threatening to wreak havoc on your town. Have fun.
Right. And then, as you mentioned, the CIA is involved because when the prison transport plane crashes, Frank has to start working closely with this Sydney Schofield. She's a CIA agent, and I was looking at her, and I'm like, this is a really pretty chick. And I'm like,
Yeah,
she looks very familiar, and I could not figure it out. And what she is from is it's an actress called Haley Bennett, and she's from this rom-com called Music and Lyrics, where Hugh Grant plays like a has-been pop star, and she plays like an up and coming, like a Britney Spears type pop star, and she's like really cheesy and like shallow. So I thought that was so hilarious that you have this actress who played this shallow pop star who is now being like a gritty, serious CIA agent.
yeah. With maybe some identity crises within her organization as well. Um, that movie, I vaguely recognize the title of that movie. I never saw it, but that's kind of got some age on it now. I think.
I want to say like 2009, 2010.
Oh, okay, not as much as I
It's
thought.
it's been a good 15 years because she played like a young pop star. Like she was a teenager or like in her early 20s. So
Yeah,
she must be our age or similar.
yeah, and I noticed that, and I kind of like this. There's familiar faces, or at least faces that look familiar,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not like blockbuster type names. So sometimes I kind of like shows to do that, where you don't focus on the gravitas of the actor, you're more focused on the story because it's not this like big, famous Hollywood household name that's gracing the screen.
Yeah, and I did think just with these two episodes, I did think the writing was solid and
Hmm.
like the acting was solid. There weren't really, I mean, maybe we can talk a bit later about how realistic or unrealistic it might be as far as like US Marshals or law enforcement or federal agencies go. But I did think that I wasn't rolling my eyes like, oh God, like these people are terrible actors or like that's a
No,
stupid line. I didn't have that attitude really at all.
no. The only thing I found scratched my head about was like this plane crash and almost everyone survives. I'm like, that doesn't seem realistic. Other than that, everything
Yeah.
was fine.
Yeah. I don't know about that. Some of the physicality of things you're questioning.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into things we're looking for. Binge to Ginge. What is your one thing to watch?
So we talked about this in with the lowdown. So my one thing, my reason that I would keep watching is because I like a good, and it's not really a mystery, it's not really a whodunit, like the lowdown or like those other shows, but it's a situation where things are not always what they seem and there's a lot of manipulation, there's deception. It's to me it's almost like a good episode of Dateline where there's like a twist or there's a multiple twists and you're just kind of on the edge of your seat. So that would be the reason that I continue watching it, is that you're looking to be led one way and then things just start heading the other direction. And I kind of drew a comparison with that to Paradise that we watched on Hulu
Hmm.
last season, and I'm sure they're going to put out a season two in 2026, I believe. So we'll cover that when it comes out. But yeah, I just kind of, it's not the same premise at all. Like that's not why I'm comparing it, but something about it reminded me of Paradise, where things keep being revealed and just things are not really like they seem. Like there's little nuggets of deception and manipulation around each corner.
There's a lot the misdirection aspect of the writing. I totally agree with.
Yes.
I'm totally down with that. A lot of misdirection. You think,
Misdirection. That's a great
yeah,
word for it.
there's a lot of you're watching it and you think something's going to go a certain way and then it flips the script and goes the opposite way and you're like, okay, now not necessarily am I thrown off from thinking it was going to go that way, but now I'm also like have to start the gears up again and figure out where it's going to go again. With
Yeah.
the irony of that is you can get to that point and it'll be like and it'll do the same process, repeat the same process. So you'll be right back at square one again. So I mean, hopefully that just continues because I think that's very fascinating to stretch it out over 8, 10 episodes, whatever. Um, the Dateline thing. I mean, I'm not the true crime person. You're the true crime fan
Yeah.
between the two of us, so like I don't know if I can necessarily get on that. Um, but the Paradise aspect I could totally get behind
Right?
because it's Paradise was very much produced from behind the eyes of the operative.
Mm.
I can't remember. I'll just call him Randall. Xavier, Xander, something like that. But you know the next, I think.
Do they
Uh,
call him X sometimes?
they may have. Maybe I'll
Or
just call him Randall.
they called him by his last name, which I can't
Yes,
remember
they
at
did.
this point.
Yeah, they that show was told a lot from behind his eyes as the operative, as the Secret Service agent.
Mm.
And this one is similarly done in the sense, like, yes, the villain is a very critical part to this storyline, but a lot of the story is told through the eyes of Frank, through the eyes of
Right.
Sydney. So still in that very operative type of viewership storytelling strategy, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did like that aspect of it. It kind of gave it a different flavor where you're just kind of dropped in the middle of this mess that's happening and you're kind of hitching along for the ride with the main character who's gonna problem solve, right? That's what he's there to do.
Yeah, it's almost like, in almost because of the nature of the writing and the misdirection, that problem solving is like a tinkering capability. So
Yeah.
it's almost like you're watching him knowing he's a federal agent, but at the same time, he's got a little bit of an engineer or a mechanic type of thought process because there is that to your mystery aspect that there's the intrigue that kind of follows along. He's trying to keep up and solve this just as quickly as situations are unfolding.
Right, because he as a marshal, he kind of knows how, similar to a detective or law enforcement, he knows how people work and he knows how criminals work. So he's kind of trying to, like, the name of the game is staying ahead of the criminals, right?
Hmm. Yeah, which that's a very detective like. Which you're
Yeah.
thinking as a marshal, you're almost expecting him to be a reactive. Like this situation has already happened. We need to diffuse the situation. You're not necessarily thinking of in a detective mind where he's trying to, like you said, get out in front of the criminal before crime is committed, or in this case, further committed.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of Hijack that we watched in the
Oh,
sense that Idris
another good one.
Elba is, he's one of those people that's thinks quick in like a high stakes situation, which I could never and will never. I'm just not that kind of person. But some people are, and those are the people that are in law enforcement and hopefully US Marshals because they can think quickly and get themselves out of a situation that could be harmful or dangerous.
Very much a prominent skill to a marshal as opposed to a detective.
Yeah, for sure.
My one thing, and this is very difficult for me because this is the type of show that, to, because of the premise going in, I need to, I want to like give people a hook to go after because just saying Marshalls and Alaska and all this, it doesn't set the stage properly. But I have to be very very careful not to give spoilers here because my one thing is watching the backstory unfold of the main villain Havlock,
Mm.
and throughout the second episode, he's piquing my attention a lot more because there's moments of righteousness he has, but there's also moments where he's still playing the crime card and using some very terrible tactics that usually criminals would employ.
Yeah, they really get into his backstory in the second episode, which does make you look forward to seeing who is this person. Like
Yeah,
they have this name, but who are they, and what does that have to do with what happened with the plane crash? So yeah, I think that is a driving force in the mystery of this villain, and that's a driving force of the show for sure.
yeah, and there's it's already hard enough for the protagonist to hunt him down and stop him, but there's a question mark of who he really is. So it's hard to track someone down and predict their behavior when you don't even know who they are. And Sydney and Frank have different perspectives of this,
Yeah.
so that they're not always being very forthcoming to each other about. So that there's it's very difficult for them to work in cohesion together to stop this guy when he's a very much unpredictable character in of himself.
Right. And the fact that they disagree on literally everything. One of them is like, I think we should do it this way. And the other one's like, that's a stupid idea. Let's do it this way.
Yeah,
So then, it gets difficult when somebody has to make a split decision, like, okay, we're going with my way. And then it's like, is that gonna crash and burn or is that gonna do well for us? So yeah, I agree with your statement that it's just difficult talking about this show because there are so many twists and turns, and like we
hmm
don't want to ruin those twists and turns for the audience. So it's difficult to be too specific about any given thing, but yeah, I think that just speaks more to the excitement factor in the show too.
yes, they're very combative with each other, which is great for the audience. It provides a wonderful dynamic appeal to what for as far as the drama is concerned. But if you're trying to put yourself in the shoes of the character, it's very. You always say like shows like this give you a lot of anxiety. It does. It would
Yeah.
make you anxious trying to put yourself in the shoes of the character because of that combative nature that they're having.
Yeah, and it just makes good TV, like you said, because it's like that unlikely partner duo.
hmm Yeah.
You got this partner who's so different and really thinks that the other person's being unfair and being ridiculous. And so not hilarity ensues this time, but
No.
conflict ensues and chaos ensues.
Ajita.
Yeah,
And that to the point on Sydney is the fact that you're intrigued by her, but it's very, very hard to trust her. And I guess credit to the actress on that because she is CIA, and
right.
as I said off the top of the show, not exactly the most forthcoming organization in the history of humanity. So it's kind of lending a believability to her role and profession that the actress is portraying.
Right. Like, is she being trustworthy or is she being shady? Because, I mean, we've all heard the stories and the conspiracies of the CIA intervening in certain things.
hmm
So, why would a TV show be any different?
Yeah. Well, and you know what? That is one thing that, in spite of where Hollywood stands on a lot of issues, that is something that in similar programming and similar pieces of film and work that that's one thing that they've always tended to make it true to reality as far as the organizations having some shady fuzz around them.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that's like a true stereotype, right?
Yeah,
The fact that you gotta keep that CIA agent at an arm's length distance because they might screw you over.
yeah. Sometimes Hollywood gives you one easy feelings, but sometimes they're spot on.
Yeah. Not very often, but sometimes.
Yeah. On to the payoff. The Last Frontier on Apple. To our audience, should you watch?
I think yes. I'm definitely going to continue watching. I mean, these first two episodes definitely piqued my interest, and I think I was definitely interested even before the first episode was over. And then the second episode ends on a very dramatic note where you're wondering what the hell's going to come next. So, I'm in. I'm totally in.
I'm in as well because there is so much through just two episodes that has not been revealed. And not to sound like a broken record, but going back to this misdirection and story going this way, story going that way, that
Mhm.
sort of thing. Like even when things are revealed, there's still not things not being revealed. So through two episodes, there's been so much to keep the audience engaged. I'm really pleased with the fact that Apple decided to drop two episodes at once because I don't know whether the first episode it had a little bit of that, but I don't know whether the first episode just by itself because there was a lot of establishing story trends in that. I don't know whether that just by itself would have had the same grasping of attention as both episodes did together.
I mean, I definitely think the second episode kind of turned the dial towards excitement and keeping you on the edge of your seat. But I do think the first episode, say that they had only dropped the first episode, I still think I would continue watching because I there was that interest there, and I do think the pilot episode was pretty solid on its own. But maybe as you mentioned, maybe they thought that it would be more of like a hit people with a bang to start off with if they dropped the two of them. So then they could really kind of reel you in and then be like, okay, you want to keep
Yeah.
watching with the way that the second episode ended.
Yeah, the second episode had a lot more uh twisting and winding of the story. The first episode was appealing to me because as we've had this happen in the past. This first episode to me was the adrenaline rush episode.
Yeah,
When the marshals find the crashed airplane and you have this big climactic sequence with the inmates.
it's
That
pretty
that's
crazy.
a yeah, and it was shot in a way that some of the sequences kind of reminded me of that scene in Kingsman where they're fighting in the church. So there was a lot of like high action, high octane cinematic qualities in that sequence.
Yeah, and I think that first episode kind of lived up to the stress and anxiety I thought that I would feel watching this show. But then, and of course, in a pilot episode of a show, you're always going to have a high percentage of it being backstory because they have to introduce the characters, they have to introduce the premise and the storyline. So yeah, I did think the second episode really built upon that and started telling the story more in detail to try to get you hooked in, and it hooked me in. I'll say it.
Yeah, and I think maybe that this is a trend that hopefully we'll see more of Hollywood do, especially in terms of streaming, where some
Mm,
some platforms put everything out at once, some one episode at a time. I almost feel like this is maybe the way to go with a new, fresh show to put multiple episodes out at once, as opposed to something like Tulsa King that already has a consistent audience. So
right.
you don't necessarily need to put two episodes out at once because there's going to be a lot of attention drawn up for the premiere anyway.
Yeah, I do think it's a pretty, we've seen that a lot so far, even just this season with this is the fifth show we've covered, and we've seen drops of two or three episodes for pretty much, I think every show that we've covered almost, except for Tulsa King.
Yeah,
So yeah, I do think that's kind of a strategy to hit it out of the park initially, especially with these like limited series. I mean, we're not really sure what the future of this show is or if it's meant to be more than one season. We didn't think Paradise was meant to be more than one season. So So you never know with these limited releases, but I do think Apple has been kind of hitting it out of the park with a few of their shows lately in the past year or so.
Oh, they have. And if you think we hit it out of the park, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And you could watch us on YouTube and Rumble as well, wherever you get your podcasts. Next up, we are going to get our foreign relations on with season 3 of The Diplomat on Netflix. One of our personal favorites, so we very much look forward to walking you through the next adventure of Kate and Hal. I know I'm excited for that one because this is a perennial favorite for us.
That's our favorite, and I'm excited for My Girl with the Widow's Peak.
Yeah, shout out.
Shout out.
She represents all of
She does.
us. Until the next real review, Red and Red signing out.